It ends up like that. Give me 3. Let's do it. 3 of the biggest headlines, okay, from Georgia's spring practice. Now, you can do this. Current headlines, things that have arisen that are big talking points. It can be storylines that you think are going to continue to arise as camp develops. Nonetheless, the 3 things that you think we're talking most about, I'll start first. Number 3 for me, and I even titled some of these like headline grabbers, right? Like this one, transfer transition. A lot of transfers transitioning onto this offense, particularly. Defensively, haven't heard a lot about these cats, right? Yeah. Xavier McLeod, Jake Pope. Seem like they're kind of buried down the depth chart. Offensively, however, these guys are going to have to play a role. Trevor Etienne's going to have to play a role. Colby Young, going to have to play a role. Okay, London Humphreys might be a little bit more of a projectionable, kind of like a maybe year 2 pop as a transfer. But these guys having to make transitions are having to do it really, really quickly, and most of them are going to have to play a major role. So that's my first one. And then number 2, didn't really title this one correctly. Give me some time, I might be able to get to it. But the freshmen in this class need to hit it earlier than ever before. I think nowadays, particularly at schools like Georgia, when you're not dependent upon the transfer portal as much as some other schools are, this year a little bit higher number of transfers than normal. Normally it's about 3 or 4. This year it's 7. That's a lot more than normal. But normally it's about 3 or 4, which means you're really, really dependent upon your high school classes. And nowadays, with the guys going out via the transfer portal and the guys getting drafted, you're turning over about a third of your roster every single year. This year, I think it's 35% of their roster that's having to be replaced with either freshmen or early transfer players. Those freshmen better hit. Like you better have guys that are able to play as true freshmen nowadays in college football. And I think they've done a really, really good job of that. It seems like early dividends and early results are telling us that these guys are who we thought they were coming out of high school, particularly those higher rated kids, whether it be KJ Bolden all the way down to like on that recruiting list of Daniel Calhoun. If you look at the consensus rankings, Jaden Riddell's ranked lower than Daniel Calhoun. Don't know how, based off what we're hearing so far. But that list of like the top 7 or 8 guys that they've signed in 2024, those guys sound like they're hits. And then Battle at Star, little Battlestar Galactica going on. You know, not a Star Wars guy. Am not, but there is a war going on at Star at Georgia.
I don't think Battlestar Galactica is Star Wars.
What is that?
I think that's
it's its own entity, I think.
Yeah, something else.
I thought the Battlestar Galactica was the evil being in Star Wars.
Huh?
I'm not going to nerd out on here, but I just know that you're wrong.
Either way, Battle at Star, didn't expect one, right? There was a 5-star coming into this that everybody was talking about, myself included. Jonel Aguero, wanted to see it. Sounds like Kyron Jones and Ja'Cory Thomas, I'm not saying they're pushing him for this position, but it's not clear-cut 1 and 2. Sounds like there's a clear-cut 1A, 1B, and a 2 in this room right now. And that, to me, is a massive storyline.
Those are 3 great storylines.
Hey, that boy Brooksy, give him 3. Who's up next?
I can go next. My first one that I have is the quarterback position has kind of become a storyline throughout the spring. I mean, we've gotten some conversation about Carson Beck a little bit. You know, he went to the podium and discussed like what he wants to see improvement upon himself. Kirby Smart kind of touched on it a little bit. But we're hearing a lot of things about how is Puglisi performing in his first couple of practices. Like, how's that going? A lot of good things coming out. But hey, still a freshman. Gunnar Stockton seeing some improvement from over the year, from last year to this year now a little bit, but also still kind of getting their bearings a little bit. So I think the quarterback room has kind of become a storyline a little bit throughout this spring. The second one that I have is the freshman linebackers. I mean, you specifically have raved about them a lot, and that's always a good thing to hear. If that's a storyline for Georgia, if you're getting these freshmen in and they're being talked about over your starters for this next year, man, that's just a great outlook for you.
From a physical standpoint, it looks like 3 Croy Walkers standing over there. It's nuts. It's crazy.
I want to see this.
And they're in similar numbers, 16, 18, and 19. They're just standing over
Those
there.
are interesting linebackers.
They look like freaks.
Yeah, I want to see that in person. The way you talk about it, I just want to see it for my own self.
I almost want to pay somebody for practice tape. I just want, because you're not going to see them.
Yeah.
We're not going to see those kids play. Justin Williams will play this year. Chris Cole will play this year. We're not going to see a ton of them, but I bet they do some freaky shit in practice. Because right now, they're probably just see ball, get ball, which probably puts them in really bad positions where their athleticism has to get rid of it. And I bet they do wild
They
stuff.
just figure it out.
Yeah, their body's just like poof. It's like whoa. Yeah, so I bet it's really fun to watch practice tape right now of those guys.
Oh, yeah, I can only imagine. And my third one, I mean, Roderick Robinson, that's arguably the biggest headline of the entire spring. I mean, the way that he's been performing in practice and basically how he's untackleable in space.
I've been writing about this, and I don't mean to diminish the stuff that we're hearing.
Yeah.
But it is thud speed.
Yeah.
Right? It's thud speed. And you're not allowed to hit. You were a smaller linebacker. I bet you rarely ever hit a back that was bigger than you in his chest.
Never.
Always attacking the thigh board.
Have to.
Always. So, like, yeah, Rod's going to sound great this spring. And I let everybody know it's going to happen. So, like, first of all, he's taking a lot of ones reps. Secondly, ain't nobody going to tackle that some bitch right now. Ain't nobody going to hit that dude from his waist up. Ain't nobody. And if they do, it's going to look exactly like it looked in practice observations the other day. Some DB was like, you know what? I'm going to go stick my face in the fan. And it just, whoppa, just exploded. Just absolutely got obliterated. And that's what's going to happen because you can't hit him from his waist down. So, yeah, he better be. He better be a bitch to tackle.
I guess the bigger thing is more so maybe the GPS stuff that we've kind of heard about. That's the bigger picture for him.
That's the real talking point.
Yeah.
Is damn, this guy's a whole hell of a lot more athletic and explosive than we thought.
So, yeah, those are my three.
Hey, that boy Jay Will, give him 3. What do you got for us?
All right, the first one I went with is Jared Wilson is kind of, I don't want to say surprised people, but he's gotten a lot of buzz around him in this offseason. I know with losing Cedric Van Pran, everyone was kind of like, oh, you know, we're losing a lot with this offense. And you're losing a leader, you're losing someone who really understands the offense, losing a 3-year starter. Like, that's always a big deal. But it sounds like Jared Wilson is more than talented enough to take over this position and do it so in an adequate way that Cedric Van Pran did. So I think that's kind of a story that's getting some traction here. My second one is Colby Young hasn't surprised people. I don't want to say surprised because that means you expect less of him, but he's kind of come in and people have said, wow, you know, he's a lot better than we gave him credit for, or he's kind of giving us wow things. He could be a guy come the fall, which I don't think that was a name that was really getting floated out 3 months ago.
I know one thing about him. There is no way in hell they thought he was that big on film.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, I know y'all have seen photos, but the reason everybody was raving about the photos because in person he feels broader, he feels even bigger than he looks in photos. Like he is one of the biggest humans on their roster from a physical. Just like look at that, like he looks like Michael Williams.
God,
honest to God, I mean, like in person he's got really thin lowers, but from his waist up he looks like Michael Williams.
Damn. And then my third one, I hate doing this, but I think it was probably the biggest story we've had of spring so far. Pierce Spurlin going down, that sucks. So I think that's kind of one that was a big storyline to talk about. I hate that for him.
Thought it was interesting. You mentioned Jared Wilson. I thought it was interesting for Kirby to kind of like, bro, you haven't seen this guy play on Saturdays like a lot, but you've seen so much in practice that you say something along the lines of, I'm excited for the world to see this guy.
Yeah.
He's seen so much in practice that he told the media in front of cameras about a player who has never started a football game, that he is excited for the world to see how talented this human is. I haven't heard him talk about people who haven't done anything for him like that.
No, you don't hear very often. You don't hear him give compliments like that often. Like,
guy's doing all right.
Yeah, he's doing good. He's got a lot of work to do. Didn't have this. Like, it's almost like he does that to tamper to make their heads
I'm
smaller.
glad you guys are talking well about him, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you have Kirby Smart come out and saying like, I can't wait for you all to see this guy, like, that's a big deal.
But it is interesting that, like, when we talked to Ced on here, he kind of said very similar things about Jared. And then a couple days later, Kirby Smart's out here saying the same thing. So, now obviously your teammate, he's not going to bash his own teammates and say, like, oh boy, buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. But I mean, 2 credible and reliable sources that have seen this up close on a daily basis for the last couple of years have now said very similar things of like, we're ready for everybody to see what this guy is capable of.
You know who knew?
Who?
This guy. I wish I would have clipped it. I had to go back and find it because it was in like a class overview, and I remember getting like physically perturbed on air about how lowly ranked this guy was.
I think I do remember that.
Jared Wilson was the invention of a my guy. I was like, you know what? I'm so angry about the industry missing so bad on this freaking kid that I'm just going to stamp him. You know what? He's mine. And that's how my guys got started.
Look at
Jared
there.
Wilson. And now he's Georgia's starting center. I guarantee you, and I had fun watching Ced because I could tell Ced was the smartest human on the field. You could just see it. It was obvious. He was never in the wrong spot. And when we got him on film, he took way more blame than you could ever imagine for a football player who had no business taking blame for things. But that's just who he was. I guarantee you, I watched Jared Wilson with the same lore and jealousy that I watched Jason Kelce with. I watched Jason Kelce play football, and I'm like, damn, I wish somebody would have let me play center like that. You know?
Yeah. And
I guarantee I feel the same way about Jared Wilson. Because Jared Wilson is the SEC equivalent of what I was. I was a 6 foot, and he's 6'2.5", 6'3". I was an undersized, underweight, plus athlete at the position. That's exactly what but he's a plus athlete at the position. So super excited to watch it. It's going to be really, really fun. We done with the storylines? You got any more?
I'm good.
That's it. All right, let's move on to player of the day, Faison Brandon. Okay. Or should we do this rant first, since we're in a ranting mood?